Married to me. Yet my sister's lust won't be denied. The arrival. The afternoon sun cast golden patterns across the polished floors of Ashford Manor as Marcus stood at the window, watching his wife tend to her roses in the garden below. Isabella moved with such grace, her laughter floating up to him like music. 1 month of marriage, and he still marveled at his fortune in finding her. She's beautiful, isn't she? Marcus turned to find Isabella entering their bedroom, her cheeks flushed from the garden work, her hair slightly disheveled in a way that made his heart skip. Devastatingly so, he murmured, pulling her close. The scent of roses clung to her skin as he pressed a kiss to her temple. I was just thinking how lucky I am. Isabella smiled against his chest. We're both lucky. They remained in that comfortable embrace until the sound of carriage wheels on gravel drew their attention. Marcus frowned. They weren't expecting visitors. Perhaps it's the fabric delivery I ordered, Isabella suggested, already moving toward the window, but the woman who emerged from the carriage was no merchant. She was striking, with cascading auburn hair and a figure that her traveling dress seemed designed to emphasize. Even from a distance, Marcus could see the calculated grace in her movements. Sienna! Isabella gasped, rushing from the room. Marcus followed more slowly, a strange unease settling in his stomach. He'd heard stories of Isabella's cousin, the free spirit who traveled across Europe, leaving broken hearts in her wake. Isabella had spoken of her with fond exasperation, but always with warmth. By the time Marcus reached the entrance hall, Isabella and Sienna were already embracing. Cousin, what brings you here? Isabella asked, holding Sienna at arm's length to study her. Sienna's eyes, a startling shade of green, flickered past Isabella to land on Marcus. Something in that gaze made him uncomfortable, though he couldn't name why. I needed somewhere to escape, Sienna said, her voice melodic and slightly breathless. Daniel and I have ended things, rather spectacularly, I'm afraid. I hoped you wouldn't mind putting me up for a few weeks while I recover. Of course not, Isabella exclaimed. Your family. Stay as long as you need. As Sienna's gaze met his again, Marcus saw something there that contradicted her story of heartbreak, a spark of interest, calculation, and something far more dangerous. He forced a welcoming smile. Any family of Isabella's is welcome here. But even as he spoke the courteous words, Marcus felt the first whisper of trouble approaching. Temptation's whisper. The first week of Sienna's stay passed with deceptive calm. She charmed the household staff, entertained Isabella with tales of Parisian society, and seemed the picture of a grieving woman seeking solace. But Marcus noticed what his wife did, not the way Sienna's hand lingered on his arm when she asked him to pass the salt at dinner, the low-cut gown she wore even for breakfast, the coincidental meetings in hallways that seemed too frequent to be accidental. On the 8th morning, Marcus retreated to the library seeking peace with his architectural drawings. He'd been commissioned to design a new church for the village, and the work required concentration he couldn't find with Sienna's presence constantly disrupting his thoughts. There you are. Marcus's pencil skipped across the paper as Sienna entered, closing the door behind her. She wore a silk robe over her morning dress, the fabric clinging to curves that seemed designed to distract. I was hoping you could help me, she continued, moving closer. There's a book on the highest shelf I can't quite reach. Of course. Marcus rose, grateful for the simple task. But as he retrieved the volume, some romantic poetry collection, Sienna positioned herself directly behind him. You're so tall, she murmured as he handed her the book. Her fingers brushed his, lingering. Strong, too. Isabella is fortunate. I'm the fortunate one, Marcus replied firmly, stepping back. But Sienna closed the distance. Are you? I've seen how she takes you for granted, Marcus. She's so absorbed in her gardening, her charity work. Does she truly see you? My wife and I are perfectly happy. Are you? Sienna's hand found his chest, resting over his heart. Your pulse is racing. Marcus grasped her wrist, removing her hand. Because this is inappropriate. You're Isabella's cousin, a guest in our home. Something flickered in Sienna's eyes, hurt perhaps, but also determination. I'm also a woman who knows what she wants. And I want you, Marcus. I have since the moment I arrived. Sienna, don't pretend you haven't felt it too. The electricity between us. The way you watch me when you think no one notices. I watch you because you make me uncomfortable, Marcus said bluntly. This needs to stop. Before Sienna could respond, the library door opened. Isabella entered, carrying a tea tray, her expression brightening at the sight of them. Oh, wonderful. You're both here. I thought we could take tea together. Her eyes moved between them, and for just a moment, Marcus saw a shadow of uncertainty cross her face. But then Isabella smiled, setting down the tray. Sienna, that robe is beautiful. Is it from Paris? As Sienna launched into a detailed description, drawing Isabella's attention, Marcus caught his wife's hand and squeezed it gently. Isabella glanced at him, her blue eyes questioning, and he offered a reassuring smile. Yet guilt gnawed at him. Not because he'd encouraged Sienna, he hadn't, but because for one traitorous moment when her hand touched his chest, his body had responded before his mind could intervene. That evening, as he held Isabella in their bed, Marcus made a silent vow. Whatever game Sienna was playing, he wouldn't be a participant. His love for Isabella was stronger than any fleeting attraction, but even as he thought it, he wondered if conviction alone would be enough. The garden encounter 2 weeks into Sienna's visit, the tension in Ashford Manor had become almost palpable. Marcus found himself avoiding entire wings of the house, changing his routines to minimize encounters with his wife's cousin. Isabella, though still welcoming, had grown quieter, more observant. The evening everything changed began innocently enough. After dinner, Isabella complained of a headache and retired early. Marcus, restless and unable to focus on his work, wandered into the garden seeking the peace that moonlight and solitude might provide. The roses Isabella had planted were in full bloom, their fragrance heavy in the warm night air. Marcus walked the winding paths, trying to sort through the confused tangle of his emotions. He loved his wife, that was never in question. But Sienna's constant presence had awakened something he didn't want to acknowledge, a dark curiosity about what Forbidden's desire might feel like. Running away from me? Marcus spun to find Sienna emerging from the shadows near the fountain. She wore a thin white nightgown that left little to imagination in the moonlight, her hair loose around her shoulders. I came here to think, Marcus said curtly. Alone, yet here I am. Sienna moved closer, barefoot on the grass. We keep finding ourselves in these moments, Marcus. Don't you think that means something? It means you keep following me, because you want me to. She was directly in front of him now, close enough that he could feel the heat radiating from her skin. I see how you look at me when Isabella isn't watching. The way your jaw clenches when I enter a room. That's not dislike, Marcus. That's desire fighting against duty. You're wrong? Am I? Sienna's hand rose to his face, fingers tracing his jawline. Your heart is racing again. Your breathing has changed? These are the signs of a man who wants something he's forbidden to have. Marcus should have stepped back. Should have returned to the house immediately. But something held him frozen, whether fascination or fear. He couldn't say, I love my wife, he managed. I know you do. But love and desire aren't the same thing, are they? Sienna's other hand found his chest again, sliding upward. You can love Isabella and still burn for someone else. You can honor your vows and still wonder what my lips taste like. Sienna stopped, but her mouth was already seeking his, rising on her toes to close the distance between them. For one suspended heartbeat, Marcus felt the warmth of her breath against his lips, smelled the jasmine perfume on her skin, felt the dangerous pull of surrendering to this moment. Then Isabella's face flashed through his mind, her trusting smile, her gentle laugh, the way she looked at him like he was her entire world. Marcus's hands caught Sienna's shoulders, firmly pushing her back. "No," he said, his voice rough but certain. "This ends now. Whatever you think you feel, whatever game you're playing, it's over. I love Isabella. Only Isabella. And I will never betray her, no matter how persistent you are." Sienna's expression shifted through several emotions: surprise, hurt, anger, and finally something harder. "You're making a mistake," she said quietly. "Desire like this doesn't just disappear because you wish it away. It festers, Marcus. It grows. Eventually, it consumes everything. Then I'll fight it every day for the rest of my life. Now leave, please." For a long moment, Sienna simply stared at him. Then, without another word, she turned and walked back toward the house, her white nightgown ghostly in the moonlight. Marcus remained in the garden long after she'd gone, his hands shaking, his heart pounding. He'd won this battle, but the war against temptation, against his own weakness, felt far from over. When he finally returned to his bedroom, Isabella was sleeping peacefully, one hand tucked beneath her cheek like a child. Marcus lay beside her, careful not to wake her, and prayed she would never know how close he'd come to destroying everything they'd built together. Truth and confrontation. The morning after the garden encounter, Marcus woke to find Isabella's side of the bed empty. Sunlight streamed through the windows, suggesting he'd slept far later than usual. His dreams had been troubled, filled with accusations and betrayals that left him exhausted despite the rest. He found Isabella in her sitting room, a leather-bound book open on her lap. But she wasn't reading. Her eyes were fixed on the pages with an expression Marcus had never seen before, a mixture of pain, fury, and profound disappointment. "Isabella?" he ventured, stepping into the room. Her gaze lifted to meet his, and the coldness there made his blood freeze. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. "Known what?" "About Sienna's intentions. Her feelings for you." Isabella held up the book, not a book at all, but a journal. "I found this in the guest room while looking for a shawl I'd lent her. I wasn't snooping, but it was open on her desk and I saw your name." Marcus's stomach dropped. "Isabella, let me explain. She's been planning this since before she even arrived," Isabella continued, her voice trembling now. "The breakup with Daniel was a lie. She saw our wedding announcement in the papers and decided she wanted you. Wanted to prove she could take you from me. It's all here, Marcus. Every calculated move, every outfit chosen to seduce you, every accidental encounter carefully orchestrated." She stood abruptly, the journal falling to the floor. "And last night, she wrote about last night. About following you to the garden. About kissing you." "She didn't kiss me," Marcus said urgently, moving toward her. "I stopped her. I pushed her away and told her it could never happen. But you were tempted. It wasn't a question." Isabella's eyes searched his face, finding the truth he couldn't hide. "Oh God, Marcus, you were actually tempted." "For one moment," he admitted, the words tasting like ash. "One terrible moment where I wondered what it would be like. But I didn't act on it, Isabella. I chose you. I will always choose you." "One moment?" Isabella's laugh was bitter. "That's one moment too many. I'm your wife." "Doesn't that mean anything?" "It means everything." The door burst open and Sienna entered, still in her nightclothes, her face flushed with sleep. She froze when she saw them, her eyes immediately finding the journal on the floor. "You read my private thoughts," she said, anger flashing across her features. "You seduced my husband." Isabella shot back, her composure finally cracking. In my home, under my roof, you pursued Marcus like he was some prize to be won. Sienna's chin lifted defiantly. I pursued what I wanted. What's wrong with that? You act like marriage makes Marcus your property, but desire doesn't work that way. He feels it too, the pull between us. That's not something you can control with vows and rings. He rejected you, Isabella said coldly. Last night, yes. But there will be other nights, other moments when his resolve weakens. There won't be. Marcus stepped between them, his voice hard. Because you're leaving, Sienna. Today, right now. Sienna's eyes widened. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything. You came here under false pretenses, manipulated our hospitality, and actively tried to destroy my marriage. Whatever you thought would happen, it's over. Isabella, Sienna turned to her cousin, desperation creeping into her voice. You can't just throw me out. We're family. Family doesn't do what you've done, Isabella said, though tears now streamed down her face. Family doesn't try to steal someone else's happiness because they're bored or curious or whatever twisted reason drove you here. I want you gone within the hour. Sienna's expression cycled through disbelief, anger, and finally cold acceptance. Fine, but you're both fools. You think this makes your marriage stronger? All you've done is prove how fragile it really is. One beautiful woman, a few weeks of temptation, and your perfect union nearly shattered. She swept from the room, leaving Marcus and Isabella in heavy silence. Is she right? Isabella whispered. Is our marriage that fragile? Marcus crossed to her, taking her hands in his. No, but it's not invincible either. I was tempted, Isabella. I won't lie to you about that. But temptation and action are different things. I chose you in that garden. I will choose you every day for the rest of our lives. How do I trust that? How do I trust you? By letting me prove it. By giving me the chance to show you that one moment of weakness doesn't define who I am or what we are together. Isabella pulled her hands away, wrapping her arms around herself. I need time, Marcus. I need to think. He wanted to argue, to hold her, to make everything right immediately. But he recognized that she was offering him something precious, a chance rather than an ending. Take all the time you need, he said softly. I'll be here, always. Renewed devotion. 3 weeks had passed since Sienna's departure. 3 weeks of careful conversations, separate bedrooms, and a distance between Marcus and Isabella that felt wider than any ocean. The manor seemed emptier now, haunted by the ghost of broken trust. Marcus threw himself into his architectural work, but the church design that had once excited him now felt meaningless. What good were beautiful structures if the foundation of his own life was crumbling? Isabella spent her days in the garden, though Marcus noticed she'd begun removing the roses, the ones she'd been tending the day Sienna arrived. Each uprooted plant felt like an accusation, a symbol of something beautiful that had been poisoned. On the 22nd day, Marcus found Isabella in the library. She sat in the window seat where Sienna had once cornered him, and he wondered if the choice was deliberate. May I join you? He asked. Isabella nodded, and he sat at the opposite end of the seat, maintaining the distance she'd needed. I've been thinking, she began, her voice quiet but steady. About trust, about marriage, about what happened. Marcus waited, his heart pounding. I was angry at first, furious that you felt anything for her at all. But then I realized something. Isabella turned to face him fully. You're human, Marcus. Temptation exists in the world. Beautiful, persuasive temptation that doesn't care about vows or commitment. What matters isn't that you felt it, it's what you did with that feeling. I pushed her away, Marcus said. I chose you. I know. I've read her journal a dozen times, looking for evidence that you'd encouraged her, that you'd betrayed me somehow. But every entry shows the opposite. You avoided her. You rejected her advances. You remained faithful even when it would have been easy not to. Isabella reached across the distance between them, her hand finding his. The touch was tentative, but real. That's who you are, Marcus. Not a man who's never tempted, but a man who chooses loyalty when temptation appears. And maybe that's stronger than never being tested at all. Relief flooded through Marcus so powerfully that tears stung his eyes. I love you, Isabella. Only you. That never wavered, not for a single moment. I know that now. And I love you too. She moved closer until they were sitting side by side. But I need you to understand something. Trust isn't automatic anymore. You'll have to earn it back, piece by piece, day by day. I will, however long it takes. And we need to be honest with each other, always, even when it's uncomfortable or painful, I promise. Isabella leaned her head against his shoulder, and Marcus wrapped his arm around her, feeling like he could finally breathe again. I'm replanting the garden, she said softly. Not with roses this time. I'm thinking lavender and jasmine. A fresh start. That sounds perfect. They sat in comfortable silence as afternoon light painted golden patterns across the library floor. Outside, birds sang in the trees that bordered their estate. Life was returning to normal, but not the same normal. This was something deeper, forged through trial and choice. That night, for the first time in 3 weeks, Isabella came to their bedroom. She stood in the doorway, backlit by hallway lamps, wearing the silk nightgown she'd worn on their wedding night. May I come in? She asked, a slight smile playing at her lips. Marcus's answer was to cross the room and gather her into his arms. Their kiss was gentle at first, tentative, as if they were learning each other again. But it deepened quickly, becoming something more urgent, more necessary, a reclaiming of what they'd nearly lost. He lifted her easily, carrying her to their bed as she laughed against his neck. They made love slowly, reverently, speaking in touches what words could never fully convey. Every caress was a promise, every kiss a renewal of vows spoken months ago, but truly understood only now, afterward. As Isabella slept curled against his chest, Marcus stared at the ceiling and marveled at the journey they'd taken. Sienna had been wrong about one thing: their marriage hadn't been fragile. It had been untested. There was a difference. Now they knew what they were capable of withstanding. They knew that commitment wasn't the absence of temptation, but the conscious choice to honor promises when temptation appeared. They knew that love wasn't just a feeling but an action, repeated daily through 1,000 small decisions. What are you thinking about? Isabella murmured sleepily. How lucky I am, Marcus replied, pressing a kiss to her hair. How grateful I am that you gave me another chance. We gave each other another chance, she corrected. Marriage is a partnership, remember? We face everything together. Together, Marcus agreed. Outside, the moon rose over Ashford Manor, casting silver light across the grounds where new flowers would soon bloom. Inside, a husband and wife lay entwined, their love stronger for having been tested, their commitment deeper for having been questioned and affirmed. The story of what had happened would fade with time, becoming just another chapter in their shared life. But the lessons learned about honesty, about choice, about the daily work of loving someone, those would remain. A foundation more solid than any Marcus could design. As sleep finally claimed him, Marcus's last conscious thought was simple but profound. True devotion wasn't measured in the absence of struggle, but in the willingness to fight for what mattered most. And Isabella, his wife, his partner, his choice would always matter most. The end.